Heartbeat Alaska is brought to you in part by Coca-Cola.
By the generous support of the Alaska Native Health Board. By Cook Inlet Region Incorporated, an Alaska Native corporation promoting economic and social progress for people throughout the state. Heartbeat Alaska is also brought to you in part by the Public Information Office of the North Slope Borough.
We are one people under one sky, with separate languages and ways. We are the heartbeat of Alaska. We open our hearts to you and welcome you to Heartbeat Alaska.
Welcome to Heartbeat Alaska. I'm Jeannie Green.
And I'm Gary Fife.
On today's program, we're going to be taking a look backwards to 1993. Thanks to you sending me the tapes from the villages, I was able to get many, many stories. And of course, Gary brought us national Native news, some very important news, keeping us in touch with what's happening across the nation and the lower 48, as well as around the world in some cases. Gary, I've always wanted to know, okay, there's certain things people have asked me, and I'm going to, this is my time to find out. Okay. What was the most interesting, not the most important story, the most interesting story that you thought that touched you last year?
Probably after Mr. Clinton was elected, when they chose Ada Deer as the Assistant Secretary for Indian Affairs. She was the first woman to hold that post and was the first one who wasn't a lawyer or a tribal leader and kind of a grassroots activist person. So she brought a brand new sense to her post. I think one that was more in touch with the everyday Native American person, if there is such a thing. And I think that's a really refreshing kind of change. You hadn't seen that in decades. And it brought a lot of participation, a lot of hope, and I think maybe some trust in the administration, but now people are still kind of watching and seeing what she's going to do. But that probably set the tone for me for the year.
While you're traveling around down south, people know that you're from Alaska, that APRN's National Native News, and this surprises many people, I'm sure, is broadcast out of Anchorage. What's their perception of Alaskans, really?
You mean by outsiders?
Yeah, when you're outside the state, what is their perception? You know, here's Gary Fife from National Native News, producing out of Anchorage, Alaska. What does that mean?
They always ask me, what's it like? Does it really seem to be the end of the earth, or are people always cold? Or the third question is it really like northern exposure? Oh, and in each case I have to pop some balloons and saying, no, Alaska is so vast and so different that no one description really fits it other than just fantastic.
Yeah.
People are really very curious about the state of Alaska, but they're really very ignorant and not knowing much about it, since it is far away from most of their homes, and most of them will never get the chance to see Alaska. So, you know, this show actually serves a real public service and giving them glimpses of what the people are like and what their communities are like. So they're always very curious, but really very ignorant about the state of Alaska.
On our Christmas program, since you mentioned outside broadcasting, the Navajo Nation sent me a pre-produced piece, and I'm so excited because this is the actual first exchange of information from the Navajo Nation with us up here. And of course, we're going to be going into Oklahoma as well, so that'll be within the next few months. So I'm
my home state.
About that. Yeah, your home state. Where were you born?
Tulsa, Oklahoma, in Indian Health Service Hospital in Claremore. But,
and your
born
tribe
and raised.
Is?
I'm enrolled as a Muskogee Creek, and I'm Cherokee on my mother's side, and I'm a member of the Wolf Clan.
Now, since coming to Heartbeat Alaska, Gary, you've been known primarily and well known, as a matter of fact, across the nation as APRN's National Native News broadcaster. Now, you've been on Heartbeat Alaska, and I'm sure that your emphasis is still on National Native News, but are you getting more recognition because television is such a powerful medium? Yeah,
it's odd. It's actually strange that I kind of do this much radio news and compared to this much TV news. But the visual medium is so powerful, as you say, and is so much a part of everyday life that people who have perhaps heard me for a few years sometimes won't know me if I'm standing next to them. It's the way it had been, but since I've been doing the newscast here with the program here, it's really amazing and a bit flattering that people will recognize me now. And so, you know, aren't you that guy on Heartbeat Alaska, as you know, the Anchorage Daily News talked about in that nice piece. It is very flattering, but I'm hoping that they're paying attention to what we're saying, the products, the news, the information that we try to share, rather than a personality.
In television, you really can't separate the two.
Yeah.
Once they get to know you,
Yeah.
they get to know you, which is a real blessing, though. It really is. It can be a real blessing.
I think so. It's nice that a lot of people are now more interested in Native issues, though. It has really had a nice ripple effect, and more people are saying, well, where can I hear this? Just tune into your public radio station right there in your community, and we're going to be there. And it's nice to be able to be a part of this real cutting edge as more Native Americans are becoming part of the broadcast field.
And including Heartbeat Alaska,
And
because as you know, we're going to be starting to air 2 programs a week real soon, right after the Christmas special on December 25th, which, by the way, Gary will be part of. Well, thanks so much for spending some time with us this evening, Gary. He got off real easy tonight. He just had to chit-chat and not do the news. Thanks, Gary.
My pleasure, as always.
From Yakutat to Barrow, Alaska newspapers publish news that makes a difference in your community. Information about events and activities that is timely, accurate, and dependable. Stories about people who make the news in your community. Stories about world events that affect your community. And stories that reflect the diversity of all Alaskans. If it makes a difference in your community, you can read about it in an Alaska newspaper. Subscribe now.
On today's program, we'll be taking a look at some stories from 1993. But first, we have a story from the Alaska Cooperative Extension Service from University of Alaska in Fairbanks. It's about the Mink Festival held in Bethel on December 11th. This year, the weather was unusually warm, so the trappers weren't able to get out and trap their fox, mink, and marten.
The Mink Festival this year was a big success. We've had a lot of good comments about it. The main purpose of the Mink Festival is to bring awareness of the world fur market and the fact that the Kuskokwim mink are desired and that we should continue to trap. We're being reminded that fur is a renewable resource and therefore should be harvested properly. Another purpose would be to recognize and celebrate the unique cultural heritage that is here. And I guess the last goal is economic development, more money in the pockets of the local people so that they can rely less on public assistance raise their self-esteem and feel more important in their own village.
And if we hit that just right, there's a joint right there, and it comes off easy.
Trapping is a traditional occupation. It produces not only revenue from the furs, but it also produces food. Very little is ever wasted in the trapping process. So this would work into their having a native culture, living the traditional lifestyle, and trapping was originally a part of that. The limit right now on trapping is the number of trappers. This area at one time produced over 60,000 mink per season. Now it's around 7,000 mink per season, and that's up from about 3,000 of a couple of years ago. As the people are informed about the possibilities, we're seeing more trappers come into it, younger guys come into it. We're seeing better and better handling every year, and the Mink Festival has to take lots of credit for that. All right, the Kuskokwim mink are the original broodstock for most of the ranch mink. They're just some of the finest wild mink in the world, if not the finest. Very, very large skins, silky furs, dark colors, and just the finest wild mink in the world. So they go to custom manufacturers, and they're making very expensive custom coats with them. Sometimes people don't understand that the skins that they're taking out here will wind up in maybe eventually in Paris or in Rome or New York. They're not, they don't end up very often in Alaska.
And mine that I homed in with this. When I think of the Mink Festival, I think of a whole year's program. It's a educational effort to increase awareness and to bring the people more aware of their own innate tradition, which was lost because of boarding schools and the work on the pipeline. And there are very few 40 or 50-year-old people that even do any trapping at all. It's the 60 and 65-year-olds that was their only livelihood. And then through the Mink Festival, showing them how their culture can raise the economy of their area by selling the furs to the fur buyers, not just wearing them themselves. My mink coat is so warm that it's going to work out very well in our 100 below chill factor out here. That's the beauty of fur, because fur is the warmest material that you can get. That's why the natives have survived for years. It's because the fur is here and we should utilize it.
We'll try and get you the results from the 4th Annual Mink Festival at a later date. Thank you, JoAnne Martin, for that story. I'd like to do something fun now. In October of 1990, I began producing a news package called Northern Lives. Let's take a look at the very first one. I interviewed Willie Hensley.
Chemo 13 and the Alaska Television Network bring you Northern Lives, a special program for rural Alaska. Now, here's Jeannie Green.
Hello and welcome to Northern Lives. I'm Jeannie Green. Northern Lives is a special report only seen by those living in rural Alaska. Each week we'll be visiting with someone new, dealing with issues that touch your lives. Visiting with me today is Willie Hensley. I'm sure most of you know who Willie is. He's a Nupak, born in Kotzebue, and president of Nana Development Corporation. Willie, I would need an additional hour just to list your accomplishments, so let's concentrate on today. Well, the election's over. The new governor's in place. The hoopla's over. Do you miss it?
I would not be telling the truth if I said I didn't miss it, because in a way I do, because it was a lot of fun. I met an awful lot of people, went to many communities, talked about a lot of issues that people were concerned about, and so, going from, 10, 12, 14, 18 hours a day down to...
That was just a short clip from that very first Northern Lives. I produced 300. At first, they were aired only in rural Alaska, then finally in Anchorage. Then, in October of 1992, Heartbeat Alaska was born. Here's one of those stories, a visit to Holy Cross.
Along the river in the mirror, I'm thinking about you. Oh, I'm thinking about you, Johnny Long.
The village of Holy Cross sits on the banks of the Yukon River. In 1888, Holy Cross was established as a Catholic orphanage and mission following a flu epidemic that devastated the native people around the state. Children from all over Alaska were sent to the mission, which closed in 1956. Today, 277 people have made Holy Cross their home, a unique village mix of Athabascans and Yupiks. Had gone by without a formal honoring of elders. But last weekend, the villagers made up for lost time in grand style with Holy Cross Elders Day.
When I get a hemo, this is on me. Just tip me over and pour me out.
So many of you elders give so much support and guidance to the younger ones, and I would really like to say thank you.
Around the same time that the mission was established in 1888, across the river, the old village site of Korofeski was eroding into the Yukon River. The villagers of Korofeski decided to cross the river around the mission site and settle in, which is now known as present-day Holy Cross.
You see your name here.
All the elders walked away with gifts, such as the jackets with their names on it. The Elders' Day Committee, Debbie Turner, Philip Dementif, Sandra Dementif, and Sharon Whitley, raised money through bingos, bake sales, raffles, and they wrote over 20 letters for donation requests and received a wonderful response. The response to the potluck wasn't so bad either. People stood in line for baked whitefish, a gouda, roasted moose meat, fish strips, stew, homemade bread, and the list goes on and on.
Along the river in the mirror, I'm thinking about you. Oh, I'm thinking about you, Johnny Long.
The band in that story was the Marshall Band, one of my favorites. I hope to get some more video from them in 1994. Heartbeat Alaska has attempted to bring you native news, including news from American Indians from the lower 48. We aired this piece on the American Indian Dance Theater last February. The company includes dancers and musicians from tribes across the U.S. and Canada. Among them are Comanches and Cheyennes from Oklahoma, members of the Sioux tribe of North and South Dakota, dancers from Saskatchewan and the Yakima Reservation in the state of Washington, as well as dancers and musicians from Wyoming, the Zuni Pueblo in New Mexico, and Arizona's Navajo Reservation. Company members are chosen from the most prestigious Native American festivals.
The people are very friendly here. Of course, we run into a lot of people everywhere we go that treat us like family, and which is very nice. They're very wonderful people, and we really enjoy that a lot. The hospitality that we receive throughout the United States and different countries that we go to are really appreciated by us, and the Alaskan people are very, very, very kind to us. And
very friendly people.
Where are you going next?
Well, from Anchorage here, we go to we're flying to Washington State, right?
Yeah, Washington.
And Washington State, and we'll be doing a couple shows down around the area there, and into Oregon and California for a couple. I think we'll be back. We'll be in the States for 2 weeks, 2 more weeks after we leave Alaska here, and then from Alaska we fly to Australia for 5 weeks.
Since its creation in 1987, the American Indian Dance Theater has toured extensively throughout the United States, from the major eastern cities of Boston, Philadelphia, and New York City to Minneapolis, Cleveland, Madison, and St. Louis in the heartland of America, all the way down to Tampa, St. Petersburg, and Sarasota in Florida. Internationally, the American Indian Dance Theater has been hailed by audiences throughout the world. Since its formation, the American Indian Dance Theater has received strong support from members of the American Indian community. They've applauded the company's goal of trying to preserve an important part of the culture and the traditions of Native American people. On that particular tour, the American Indian Dance Theater traveled to several communities in Alaska. Let's travel now to South Central Alaska to a village called McGrath, thanks to the video from Peter Twitchell.
Julie, slipping up the holler. Julie, trying to make a dollar. Julie, give me a smaller and I'll pay you back someday.
My mom and dad moved over here in 19, I guess.
Rose Winkelman, an Athabascan woman, was born in McGrath in 1920.
Now Julie was a trainer when it too time to come. Sugar by the bushel.
On July 10th, she and over 200 McGrath residents gathered for the 11th annual KSKO Music Festival.
Julie, slipping up the holler. Julie, trying to make a dollar. Julie, give me a smaller and I'll pay you back someday.
Public radio station KSKO, based in McGrath, hosted the 11th annual musical event.
What do you plant in your garden?
Besides the weeds?
Yeah.
I got zucchini, broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, head lettuce, leaf lettuce, spinach, carrots, beans.
Rose Winkelman's summer is a busy one. Music festivals and traveling are scheduled around her hobby and major summertime activity, gardening.
These strawberries are from an old strain that I got from someone who had them 40 years ago. I think they're called Pioneer strawberries. They don't.
The community of McGrath has around 500 people. Located in southwestern Alaska, you have to fly in, but that's not a problem for Rose.
Yeah, my brothers all turned into pilots. Not all of them, but most of them. And then I married a man who was a pilot, so all my sons are pilots. Makes it nice living out here in the bush, you know.
Rose worked as a community health practitioner for 16 years before she retired 8 years ago. She's kept busy making jams and jarring and freezing vegetables and sending them to her grandchildren as far away as Tennessee. Now in her 70s, she's enjoying her life, surrounded by lettuce, cauliflower, and good McGrath summertime music.
Julie, slipping up the holler. Julie, Julie, trying to make a dollar. Julie, give me a star and I'll pay you back someday.
In beautiful McGrath, Alaska, this is Peter Twitchell, your camcorder reporter for Heartbeat Alaska.
If you have news or information from your village or community, please call Heartbeat Alaska, area code 907-563-3507, or fax 907-563-7079.
Whoa! Finally got here just in time. Hi, I'm Jeannie Green. Welcome to Heartbeat Alaska's Christmas special. Greetings from all over the state.
Many times our Alaska Native culture is lost through alcohol and drug abuse. At Aquila House, we can help you regain your life as well as your heritage too. We use a holistic treatment approach for physical, mental, and spiritual values to come back to you.
If you need long-term treatment for alcohol and drug addiction, the Aquila House can help you. We are a 53-bed therapeutic community and have recently added a native services, so call us, Rihanna.
I'd like to thank everyone that sent in video for 1993. I also look forward to more video for the villages that we have not visited. Please get your camcorder out and send them to me because we'll be doing more stories than ever next year. We'll have 2 shows a week on the weekends for RatNet and air different times all over the state, Canada and Greenland, parts of Russia and Arizona. The Christmas special, don't miss it. That's on Christmas Day. Thank you so much for joining me. Heartbeat Alaska has been a lot of fun, and I hope you've enjoyed it. See you next week.